December 7th, 1941, a day that changed history. Not only did it change history, but it was also a very important day in the life of Firman Balza. Firman Balza was a gunner's mate serving aboard the USS Maryland, which was docked in Pearl Harbor. I'm very honored to have met Firman on multiple occasions, and I heard his stories. I first met Firman on April 12th, 2007. I was the founder of a World War II study group, and we invited Firman in to share his stories about his time during the war. I believe Firman has impacted each and every person inside this room. Whether it was the fellow sailors he met while serving in the Navy, or those he talked to while being a public voice for World War II veterans, especially Pearl Harbor survivors, I believe Firman has made a profound impact on each and every person inside this room. Firman had a very active career from 1941 through 1944 while serving aboard the USS Maryland. Firman made lots of friends aboard the USS Maryland, but one of the most important was Johnny Land. Johnny Land was in charge of the 5-inch guns, Battery 3 on the starboard side, which Firman belonged to. This led to lots of time spent together and a great sense of camaraderie formed between the two. Johnny Land was also the sea pappy of Firman, which means that Johnny had to look out for Firman's well-being and safety aboard ship. One of Firman's favorite stories of this was how Johnny would take care of him during chow time. During chow, they had a table of 10 men from various ranks, and being the low man on the totem pole, Firman would very often get the necks and backs of the chickens. And Johnny would sometimes rip off a leg of the chicken and pass it down to Firman so that he would be able to get a better part of the chicken during chow. Firman was also very impacted by the attack on Pearl Harbor. While changing shoes to go over to the Catholic service aboard the USS Oklahoma, the Japanese had attacked. Changing shoes probably saved Firman's life, since the USS Oklahoma capsized after taking several torpedo hits during the attack. Firman also was part of a human chain, passing ammunition up from the magazine down on the lower deck of the USS Maryland, all the way up to the top deck to the anti-aircraft guns. Firman was also very affected by watching men swimming in the oil and flame-engulfed water, trying to get to safety during the attack. As you can see, the U.S. Navy shaped Firman's life early on, whether it was the men he served with like Johnny Land or the events of Pearl Harbor. Johnny didn't know this, but his time in the Navy would cause him to be a very public voice for World War II veterans. Firman shared his stories for about 20 years to anybody he could talk to, whether it was on travel in Washington, D.C. on an honor flight, or it was a school group that he was talking to. He was always ready to give a story out. He was also very instrumental in creating a memorial board for the USS Maryland while being a member of the USS Maryland Association. Firman only started sharing his stories after the 60th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor in 2001. After flying out there, he realized that the men that he had served with at Pearl Harbor that didn't make it out needed a voice to be heard so that they would not be forgotten. He also preached about responsibility, the responsibility of your actions during every presentation. Firman went on a Return to Pearl honor flight in 2012, and he was also very instrumental in creating a memorial board for the USS Maryland. Since he was a part of the USS Maryland Association, he kept in contact with all of the veterans and all of the men that he served with during the war. He would take the names of everybody that had died during a certain year, and he would take them to Linda Dolner to get engraved on brass plating. This brass plating was engraved yearly for about 10 years until the board was ready to be finished and completed and displayed. After Linda Dolner, a graphic artist at Wisconsin Public Service, engraved all of the names of the survivors as well onto more brass plates, the board was finished in 2006. This board was sent to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and displayed alongside a very detailed model of the ship as well. Firman gave many presentations at various schools and public gatherings. He also took part in the Honor Flight program and was a very instrumental member of the USS Maryland Association. He enjoyed talking to people anywhere he went, whether it was in D.C. or during an honor flight or just a school group. He always had a story for an open ear. And I would like to tell one last Firman story, a story that I've taken with me for all 11 years since he had told me. The story is about the importance of taking responsibility for your own actions. Firman would always start off his presentation by giving everybody a button. This button was made of teak wood, which was actually the deck of the USS Maryland, and it had a penny glued to the front. Firman would then say, each one of you are responsible for what you do. And that if you did not pay attention to all of your responsibilities, that your life wouldn't be worth that 1 red cent on the front of that button. I believe that's a very important lesson to learn and a very important lesson to be successful in life, and Firman lived it every day. I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming to the Firman's funeral today to celebrate his life and legacy.